Going through a divorce is incredibly tough. But for a lot of people, the question of what to do with the family home, well, that can be the absolute hardest part. It's not just a building, right? It's a huge financial asset, and it's tied up with so many memories. So if you're navigating this in Cherry Hill, New Jersey, knowing the right steps isn't just helpful, it's absolutely essential for a fair outcome.
It's the big one, isn't it? The question that probably keeps you up at night. Do we sell it? Can one of us buy the other out? But before you can even start to answer any of that, you have to agree on one critical thing. What is the house actually worth? That single number is the foundation for everything that comes next. And today, we're going to break down exactly how you get it.
You might be thinking, hey, can't we just agree on a price and move on? And I get it, but it's not quite that simple. You see, New Jersey law has some very specific rules for dividing property, and they're there to protect both parties, especially when it comes to the biggest asset you probably own together, the house. So, the key term you're going to hear is equitable distribution. Now, listen closely because equitable does not mean equal. The court's goal is a fair division, and that might not be a simple 50-50 split. To figure out what's fair, everyone, you, your ex-spouse, your lawyers, and the court, needs a single, unbiased number to start from. And that's where the valuation comes in. And that brings us right to the solution, the formal appraisal. Look, this isn't just about getting a number. It's about getting a legally sound valuation that can actually stand up in court. And just as importantly, it can make your negotiations so much smoother and faster. Let's think about it like this. On one side, you've got an estimate from a real estate agent, and that's fine for what it is. It's a marketing tool to help set a listing price. But on the other side, you have a formal appraisal. That's a legally defensible, in-depth valuation. When you're in a legal process, like a divorce, only one of those, the formal appraisal, is going to carry the weight you need. And this right here is the real power of a good appraisal. It just cuts through all the emotion and the guesswork and replaces it with a neutral, factual baseline. When both sides are working from the exact same number, it becomes so much easier to have a realistic conversation about how to divide the asset and, just move forward. Okay, so you're on board. You know you need an appraisal, but what does that process actually look like? It can feel a little intimidating, so let's break it down into a simple step-by-step roadmap so you know exactly what to expect. It really boils down to these 6 steps. First, you and your attorneys will decide if you're going to hire one neutral appraiser together or if you'll each hire your own. Then you find a licensed expert who really knows the Cherry Hill area. After they do the on-site inspection and review some documents, the appraiser does all their analysis and delivers the final report. Then you just provide that to your legal team and you're ready to go. Of course, the next questions are always the big ones. What's this going to cost me? And how long is it all going to take? So let's look at the typical expectations for the Cherry Hill area. For a pretty standard single-family home in this area, you can expect the cost to land somewhere between $250 and $500. And it's really best to think of this not as a cost, but as an investment. Seriously, a few $100s for a rock-solid valuation now can save you thousands in legal fees and disputes down the road. Now, that price can change a bit based on a few things. A larger, more complex property, or maybe a multi-unit home, that's naturally going to cost more to appraise. And if you need a super fast turnaround, or if the appraiser actually has to testify in court, those services will also add to the final fee. As for the timeline, the good news is it's usually pretty quick. Once the appraiser has actually inspected the property, you can typically expect to have that full written report in your hands within just a few days to about a week. So it's not a process that's going to hold up your divorce proceedings for long. All right, now for my favorite part, let's talk about what you can do to help the process along. This isn't about trying to artificially boost the value or anything. It's about making sure the appraiser has everything they need to be accurate and efficient, which honestly just gives you a welcome sense of control during a really stressful time. So here's a simple little checklist. Tidying up just shows the home is well cared for. Fixing small things, like a loose railing, prevents them from being noted as deferred maintenance. Make sure the appraiser can get into every room, the attic, the basement, everywhere. Oh, and please, secure your pets. And finally, if you can have a list of recent big upgrades like a new roof or a new kitchen with the dates and costs, that is incredibly helpful for the appraiser. All of these steps are important for sure, but they all hinge on one critical decision: choosing the right professional for the job. And believe me, for a sensitive legal matter like a divorce, not just any appraiser will do. You really need someone with specific expertise. So here's what you're looking for. 3 things, non-negotiable. First, they must be licensed in New Jersey. Second, they should have real, specific experience with divorce appraisals. They understand the legal standards required. And third, and this is critical, they need to have deep, firsthand knowledge of the Cherry Hill and South Jersey real estate market.
So what does that look like in the real world? Well, you should be looking for a local firm that straight up says they specialize in appraisals for legal matters like divorce. They're going to understand the level of detail and documentation that the courts demand, which is totally different from a standard mortgage appraisal. That kind of specialization is key.
When you find a potential firm, you want to see that they're a legitimate local business with a professional presence. Finding someone who really understands the Cherry Hill courts and all the local market nuances, it can just make a world of difference in how smooth this whole process goes for you.
Because ultimately, that's what this entire process is really all about. An appraisal isn't just some number on a piece of paper. It's the key to ensuring fairness, to reducing conflict, and to allowing you to start your next chapter on solid financial ground. So the final question you really need to ask yourself is this: is your appraisal setting you up for a truly fair new beginning?